together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan et kol darkav, lemo Yisrael kehetavniot, lekol hadevarim, sheba shamayim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who has given all of his ways to his people Israel as pictures of all things heavenly. This teaching is split into two parts. And we're only going to look at two verses. That's all we're only going to look at, two verses. We're only going to look at two verses, the first two verses of the Torah portion. Now, the Torah portion is called Kedoshim, which is translated holiness, but it's not really holiness, it's you holy, you plural holy. You plural, so like holinesses is a better translation. Now, this is what I'm going to be talking about, is how, you can see the title, Jewish holiness. Jewish holiness. All the rabbis that I've listened to on Torah portion Kedoshim started out saying the same thing. They all said, in a roundabout way, they didn't like jump right on it, but they went around and around and around, but they all said the same thing. Jewish holiness is exactly the opposite from Christian holiness. They wouldn't say those words. I'm saying those words. But they said that in a roundabout way. So since most people that hear me teach are from a Christian background of one stripe or another, of one amount or another, you need to know what the difference is. I've taught you as much as I can teach about Hellenism and Judaism and how they're totally different, but the details of how we live our life is what I'm sure you want to know. Like what's the difference between how Jews view holiness and how Christians view holiness? Because you had the world of Christianity and what they said was holiness. I don't even know what that is. I've heard it said a million times in teachings on the radio and TV and from Christians, personally. But I can't tell you what Christians believe holiness is. I can't. It makes no sense to me. It's too complicated. And I'm saying that on purpose because Judaism, the holiness in Judaism is really simple. It's down to earth. It has to do with here, with now, with how we do, what we do, when we do. And this is what every rabbi that I heard talking about the Torah portion Kedoshim said. They all started out saying it's about living here now. And it's not like the rest of the world. Because holiness, for people who read the Bible, is different from holiness in Judaism. It's very ethereal. Like when we sing these songs, he's covered me in garments of salvation and wrapped me in a robe of righteousness. What does that mean? It's all very, spirit wooky, kind of spooky and very up there, isn't it? It's not down here, right? It's metaphysical, right? Yeah. Yes, but it's metaphorical, from Scripture. But these are metaphors, they're pictures. They're not physical, down-to-earth words, yes? Right. You wouldn't walk up to somebody in the street and say, "Are you covered in a garment of salvation today?" Yeah, exactly. Right. The Lord is in his holy temple. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. These are all things that are very ethereal. So for most Bible believers, for most people who read the Bible, holiness is way up there. But we live here. So Judaism, very different from that, divides holiness into two things. And that's why we're looking at two things, two verses. The first one is, then the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, now what it says is, Davar et El Kol Adat Yisrael. El Kol Da'at Yisrael. That word kol, El Kol, to all of the house of Israel. What the rabbis say this means, and I keep saying what the rabbis say on purpose, because these are not my words, it's not my thoughts. They've been, Jewish people have been doing this for 4,000 years. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. What all the rabbis say is that this is really, really important, that it says El Kol Adat Yisrael. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to all the congregation of the sons of Israel. That means past, present, and future. And what it means is that whatever he's going to talk about here applies to Jews, all Jews, every Jew. The standard Jew, the most idiotic, dumb, brainless, moron Jew, and the most exalted, amazing, genius, Ilui, that Ilui means genius in Judaism, genius of the Torah, tzaddik who walks on water. It applies to every Jew, whatever this stuff is. And what this stuff is holiness. You see what I'm saying? Holiness isn't for some. Holiness is for every single member of Israel. So we got a problem. Because I know and you know, we both know very, very well that in the church world, holiness is not for everybody. It's something to be tried to attain by everybody, but it is not for everybody to do right now, today. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we got a problem. They're two completely different worlds, two completely different ways to think. But all the rabbis say that this is really important, Devar El Kol. And I'm going to show you how important it is, because it only shows up 4 times in the whole Torah, where God says, say this to all of Israel. Say this to every Jew. Usually God didn't say that. He said, God spoke to Moshe and said, tell Israel, or tell the people, or go say this, or something like that. But never, except for 4 times, 4 other times did he say, go tell all of Israel. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing is this. Kedoshim tihiyu. That's it. Kedoshim tihiyu. Those 2 words makes all the difference in the world between Judaism and the rest of the world. And it's not just Christianity. It's also Rastafarians and Buddhists and Muslims, and everybody else has their own idea of holiness. Everybody. But we're in America. Most people come from a Christian background. So that's why I talk about that. Kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall be holy. Kedoshim, you holies, you holinesses, tihiyu, you shall be. You shall be holy. All of Israel, you shall be holy. Well, God wouldn't put a big giant stick out, break your legs and say jump over the stick, would he? Would he? But that's how most people think about God. He says, here, I'm commanding you to do this. And then he makes our life so miserable and so difficult that we can't do it. And he makes us who we are, so we can't do it. That is just cruelty. This tells us that it is possible. Kedoshim tihiyu, Devar El Kol Adat Yisrael. Speak to all of Israel. You be holy like I'm holy, because I'm holy, because I'm holy. You be holy. So we're left with a giant question. How? Right? Yes? Hello? Does that make sense? If you're not left with that question, you're not thinking. You should be left with the question, okay, great. How? How? Yep. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Okay. I'm going to show you every instance in which God said, speak to all, speak to all of Israel. No, it's only a couple. It's only 4, I believe. Yeah. Exodus 12, verse 3 and verse 47. Speak to all the congregation. And he tells them all about Passover. What does that tell us? All Israel should do Passover, or it's to do Passover. All right. And then in Exodus 16, 9 through something, I didn't write the verse, it's that whole passage when they leave Egypt and they start complaining about food, and God rains quail down this deep, a cubit deep, on the whole camp. It's like 5 miles square or more of a cubit deep in quail. But then he rains down manna, at the same time. Say to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, come forward before the Lord. He's heard your complaining. So they look to the wilderness. The glory of the Lord shows up. And he says, at twilight you shall eat meat. Now, who is he talking to? All the congregation of Israel, yes? And he says to all the congregation of Israel, you're going to eat meat at twilight, and in the morning you're going to be filled with bread. Now, that bread is from heaven. It's manhu. We translate it manna. People say manna. But it's actually manhu, which means, who is he? What is he? Now, it can also be translated, what is it? But it's literally he. Who means he? Who is he? What is he? Manhu. Literally. And Moshe says to them, to all of Israel, it is the bread. It's the manhu, which the Lord has given you to eat. Everyone shall get. And now he gives them Shabbat. Who did he give Shabbat to? All of Israel. Who did he give the manna to? All of Israel. And who did he give the meat to? All of Israel. So this is the second instance in which God says, tell all of Israel. Now the next one is in Exodus 34, where God gives 3 different things. The 10 words, just like the last one, he gave 3 things. He gives 3 things again. The 10 words, or what they say, 10 commandments. The mishpatim, that's the first, I believe it's 40-some, quote, commandments. In mishpatim, ordinances, judgments. Judgments is a better translation. And all the tavniot, all of them. The tabernacle, the priest, the garments, the vessels, the ministry, the sacrifices, all the pictures. When Moshe was coming down from Mount Sinai and the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, Moshe didn't know that the skin of his face shone because he was speaking with God. So his face lit on fire. So when Aaron and all the sons of Israel saw Moshe, they ran off. And because they saw the skin shining, and they ran off. And Moshe, it says, Moshe called to him, and they came back. And I'm sure they came back like this. Where? Yeah. So they came skulking back to him because they're terrified. His face is on fire. And the skin of his face is shining. So they're afraid to approach him. Then Moshe called to them. Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned. And Moshe spoke to them. Now them here is the leaders of the congregation and Aaron. But then it says, afterward, all the sons of Israel came near, and he established for them everything that the Lord had spoken. Well, what had the Lord spoken? The 10 words, and he wrote them on the tablets, and then all the, however many it is, mishpatim, the judgments, up on Mount Sinai, and then all the pictures, all the tavniot. And he established those 3 categories of things for who? All of Israel. All of Israel. All right, now the next one, Exodus chapter 35, next chapter. Then Moshe assembled all the congregation of the sons of Israel and said to them, all the congregation of Israel, past, present, and future. For 6 days work may be done, but on the 7th day you shall have Shabbat. So therefore Shabbat applies to all of Israel. Moshe spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, take from yourselves a terumah. And then he tells them, get all the stuff together to build the pictures, the tavniot. All right? So Shabbat and tavniot. Now, these are the only times in the whole Torah where God, how many was that? 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 our verse for today. 5 times in the whole Torah, God said, speak to all the congregation of the sons of Israel. And believe me, I checked and checked and checked. You know why? Because I'm an idiot. I didn't believe the sages. They said it. And I was like, that cannot be. So I went and I checked it. Because I'm an idiot, and I didn't trust them. All right, let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 28. So obviously there's not going to be a lot of verses today. 1 Chronicles 28. Yes, this is good. So, God gave two different things about holiness. The first one is, he said, all of the stuff that's Jewish, all the Jewish stuff. So now I'm going to quiz you. Name me something Jewish. Shabbat. Shabbat. Come on. Kippah. What did you say? Challah is Shabbat. Kippah. What else? Talit. What else? Festivals. What else? Okay, let's start at the beginning. How about the tabernacle? Let's start there. The tabernacle, the priest, the garments of the priest. What else? The ark. That's the furniture, all the furniture of the tabernacle. What else? What happens in the tabernacle? Good. Sacrifices. Kosher laws. Yes? The tithe. The offerings. The vows. The firstborn. All the things that God gave to do in the tabernacle. Yes? These are all holy. God says about every one of these are kadosh. Yes? They're all Jewish. So there's two kinds of holiness in Judaism. The first one is the one I'm always teaching about, which is the pictures. Everything in Judaism is a picture of heavenly things. We say that prayer about the Tavniot prayer, that all the things in Judaism are a picture of heavenly things, yes? But what about us? What about our life? And this is the holiness that I very rarely talk about. Very rarely, because I'm trying to work it out for myself. Before we go here, Bob Dylan said that the most important thing you can do in life, anybody know what he said is the most important thing you can do in life? Oh, wow. I'm talking to a new generation. Who's Bob Dylan? Okay, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is he's a poet laureate who started with folk music in the 60s, and then he changed. He went to electric guitar music. And then he changed again, and he added all kinds of instrumentation. Then he changed again, and he did Christian music. And then he changed again, and then he changed again, and again, and again. With each new, maybe 6 years, 5 years, he changed completely. So what do you think the most important thing that Bob Dylan said was in life? Make yourself a better person. Very close. To reinvent yourself. Now, he was saying it, and you can go on the internet and find hundreds of people who talked and wrote about Bob Dylan reinventing himself and how important in life that is. But he did it to be relevant to this world, to be relevant to each new generation. I say we should do it to be relevant to God. Do you want to be relevant do you want me to care about you? Well, then you got to do something to make yourself relevant to him. And if you don't think you do, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. He doesn't just love on everybody because God is love. He loves everybody, but he disciplines also. And so to make yourself, you got kids, most of you got kids, and your kids have to make themselves relevant to you. And if they don't, what do? You make them make themselves relevant to you, and you change them. You change their behavior. You teach them. You redirect them. You discipline them. Yeah? Okay. We have to make ourselves relevant to God. Why? Because Kedoshim tihiyu. You shall be holy like I'm holy. But that's a total impossibility, unless it's not. Now go to 1 Chronicles. First Chronicles 28. So David prepared everything for the temple, for the division of the priests, for the army, for the doorkeepers, for the musicians, for the Levites, for the tithes, for the running of the entire kingdom. And in verse 19 he says, all this the Lord made me understand in writing by his hand upon me all the details of this picture. Now when it says all the details, it means for the whole kingdom. Now that's the first part of holiness. He set up all of Israel just like the kingdom that he saw in writing by God's Spirit. That's the first part. But then comes the second part. Go to chapter 29. Well, let's see. No, it's in chapter 28. 29. It's 29, sorry. Verse 19. Well, he's praying in this verse, and he says, give to my son Shlomo a lev tam, or lev tamim, a perfect heart, to keep the mitzvot, your chokim, your testimonies, your edut, your testimonies, your chokim, your statutes, to do and to build the temple, which I've provided for. I'm the one who set all this up. I'm the one who provided for it. Well, tamim is usually used plural, not always. Okay. Go to chapter 28. Let's back up to chapter 28, verse 9. So he prays for Shlomo to have a perfect heart, right? So he can do Judaism. Now in verse 9 it says, as for you, now he's talking to Shlomo here, and he says, as for you, Shlomo, know the God of your father and serve him with a whole heart, a perfect heart, lev tamim, or lev tam, and a willing mind, or willing spirit actually, for the Lord searches all hearts. Serve the Lord with a perfect heart. Why? Because the Lord searches every heart and understands every intent of the thoughts. If you seek him, he might let you find him. Okay, so God doesn't just know your thoughts. God knows the intent of your thoughts. Why? Because he searches every heart, yeah? You have to make yourself relevant to God. In Judaism, there's a whole shopping list of stuff that goes into Judaism. They boil it down, I mean relevant, to make him happy with you. To make yourself relevant to him. We are irrelevant to God unless we make ourselves. I know you don't like that. It makes you, well, I'm relevant to God just because I'm me. No, you're not. We're only relevant to God if we make ourselves relevant. Why would God give Judaism, what, to put a bar so you can jump over it? No, it's so we can change ourselves to make ourselves relevant to God. That's what relationship is, isn't it? You have somebody that you're in relationship with, you're relevant to them, aren't you? Yes? Girls, you love relationship. Doesn't that mean you're relevant to them and they're relevant to you? And if you're not in relationship, they are irrelevant to you. Yes? Is it just me? Okay, that's what relationship is. If you want to, as David said to Solomon, Lada'at et Adonai, to know the Lord, he tells him, Solomon, know the Lord. Okay, I know the Lord. If he's telling him to do something, it's got to be possible to do. And so it is possible for us to know the Lord. The only way to do that is to do Judaism and we thereby make ourselves relevant to him, so that he goes like this. Wow. That's good. I like that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I mean, if you're thinking of God as a big, ethereal ball in the sky, then you're doing the law to do Judaism. But if you're doing Judaism to figure out his feelings, his thoughts, who he is, why he is, what he is, that's relationship. And you can actually make him look at you and turn his face to you and be happy with you. And by the way, there are hundreds, not dozens, hundreds of verses that say that. I looked at almost all of them this week. So this is why I'm telling you, you have to make yourself relevant to him, if you want to. If you don't care, don't care. But don't say you have a good relationship with him. You can't have it both ways. All right, so he tells him, Solomon, know the Lord, because God knows the thoughts and the intentions of those thoughts. Yes? Yeah. So it is our job to make ourselves holy. Our spirit is holy. That's the stuff that everybody who's a believer talks about. Oh, we're holy. God made us holy. We're clothed in righteousness. My spirit is holy. I'm holy. Okay, yeah, your spirit is. But what about your day-to-day? What about your soul, your nefesh, your neshama, your neshama? What about that? That's our job. That's what Judaism does. All righty. Some of those things in Judaism that are on the shopping list of stuff, they all come from what's called the midot. Midot are personality traits. Personality traits. Go to Mark chapter 7. Mark chapter 7. Okay. Mark chapter 7, verse, I guess I might as well read the part that I don't want to read. So they're arguing about food and being, well, I haven't told you yet, being, like defiled. What defiles a person? What makes somebody unclean? They're arguing about it. Because some of the Jews do the dot of the law, the curse of the law, and they say, you have to do this to be clean. Well, these are observant Jews, these Talmidim, these disciples of Yeshua. They're observant Jews. They do everything in Judaism. But it ain't good enough for some. And so, verse 17, when leaving the multitude, he entered the house. His Talmidim questioned him about the parable that he just told. He said to them, are you guys still that dumb? Yeah, real nice. Nice of Jesus, huh? You guys still so stupid? Which is what it says in Hebrew, shtut. You guys still so stupid? You don't understand that whatever goes into the man from outside can't make him unclean? Because it doesn't go into his heart, it goes into his stomach, and he poops it back out, which is what it says in Greek. He poops it back out. How's it going to make you unclean? You goes in, you poop it back out. And then, this is what drives everybody nuts. He declaring all foods clean. Are all foods clean? Yes, they are. It says it in Leviticus chapter 11. It says, this is clean, this is clean, this is clean, this is clean. That is achal, food. Right? Everything else is not food and not unclean. Unclean. Thank you, Ruby. Unclean lachem, to you. Those are the two categories. Unclean to you and food. That's it. So when it says here, he declared all foods clean, all it means is he's declaring Leviticus chapter 11, what it says. And he was saying that which proceeds out of the man, that's what makes him defiled. Because from within, out of the lev, out of the me'ah, the heart, proceed evil thoughts, fornication, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All of these evil things come up out of the man, from his heart. Who's going to clean that? So, listen to me. If Christ cleansed all believers, why is that still happening amongst believers? He can't clean it. We clean that. And this is the purpose of Judaism. Nobody should expect God to clean that stuff. He doesn't. We clean that stuff. He knows, he searches every thought and every intent of the thought. But it doesn't say he gets rid of it, does it? There's not one verse in the whole Bible that says he does. Not one. But it says we do. This is the purpose of Judaism. It's to cleanse our heart. To cleanse our heart. Yes? Does that make sense so far? All right, so Judaism helps us fix ourselves. It's all about the midot. Midot means characteristics. These that we just read, those are characteristics. Those are midot. There's also good midot. There's generosity and kindness and gentleness and mercy and somebody who's very, very giving. You know, tzedakah, gives a lot of tzedakah. So there's good midot and there's bad midot. And the whole trick of life, of Judaism, is to fix the bad ones. And it takes time. So if, like with me, my two big ones was lust and greed or lust for money. I still don't know exactly what to call that. Either greed or lust for money. Those are my two big ones. Two big ones. Got a whole bunch of others, but those are my two big ones. So I took those two big ones on. Lust, started working on it 7 years ago when I got that book called The Garden of Shalom by Rabbi Arush. Shalom Arush. So, it's taken 7 years to just get a handle on it. Now, greed or lust for money, I've been working on that for about 10 years. And I feel like I just now started to get a handle on it. And it takes a lot of work. Judaism has a lot of different categories that help us work on these things. I'm sure you've heard of that there's no temple, so we're down to three things. What are they? How do we replace the temple? Tefillah, prayer. What? Tzedakah. Tzedakah isn't one of them. Tzedakah is the third one that goes with another word. Really? You don't know? Torah, study, prayer, and gemilut chasadim, acts of righteousness, which is tzedakah. Tzedakah is one little part of it. Gemilut chasadim, acts of righteousness, or acts of loving kindness. Yes? Okay, these replace the temple, these three things. Those three things are then divided into many, many categories. Gemilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness, is the big one. That's got lots of categories. And it's all about the midot. Here's one, gezel. You guys know what gezel is? Stealing. There's a lot of passages in our Torah portion this week that deal with these categories. Let's go to Leviticus 19, which is our Torah portion. Now, in my Bible, it says sundry laws, like, not that important. Jews do not look at these like this. Let's go to Leviticus 19, verse 11. You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to each other. You shall not swear falsely by my name so as to profane. Okay, verse 11. You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to each other. Now, this is about gezel. This is about stealing. And you can steal somebody's time by lying to them. You can steal from people by charging too much or charging too little. You can steal from somebody by giving false information about something that they're buying or you're going to buy from them. You can steal from somebody by giving a false report about somebody and stealing from who they are. I was watching a teaching by Mark Biltz the other day, and you know what that idiot said? Okay, that's stealing from Mark Biltz. Because now you all hearing me go, oh, he's an idiot. And I've just stolen whatever amazing wisdom is in that man. That's also stealing. So there's all kinds of categories and subcategories of stealing. There's another verse in Deuteronomy that says you shall have accurate, I think it's also here in Leviticus in our Torah portion, you shall have accurate weights and measures. You shall not put too much or too little on those weights and measures. I don't see it here. No, there. Verse 36. Here it is. Verse 35. You shall do no wrong in judgment, in measurement of weight or capacity. This is about gezel, stealing. You shall have a just balance, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin. An ephah is dry weight, and a hin is liquid weight, liquid measure. So all these things are about the attribute of stealing. I love to steal, by the way. I love stealing. I don't so much anymore, but when I was a kid, I loved the rush of ripping things off. When I was a little kid in England, there were girls who would sell flowers on the street, little cobblestone streets in these little villages in England. We lived in Bottisham and Lakenheath in England. And I was like 6 years old or something like that, and I'd walk by the little maids with the flowers, and very surreptitiously, cautiously, like really slick, I'd reach down, I'd pull money out of their tins, and they wouldn't even see it, because I'd go, oh, that's pretty, and they'd look over there, and I'd go, and steal their money. And I kept doing it when I was growing up. I did it when I was 11, 12, when I was in Colorado, at this huge, beautiful place called the Broadmoor. And I used to go in there, and I would steal all kinds of cool things I would find. And nobody ever caught me. And then, got a little older, and I lived in Fort Carson. I lived in Colorado Springs. That's when I was living in Fort Carson. Then we moved to Colorado Springs, right outside Fort Carson. And I did the same thing at the hospital PX. And I took the lining out of my coat, and I would go into the, it's so stupid. I would go into the hospital PX with my brother, and I would look over there, and I'd take candy bars and candy, and God only knows what else, and I'd stick them in my coat in the lining, and nobody would ever know. My brother, I tried to teach him how to do it. He's older than me. I had to ask him for forgiveness for doing this when I was 12 years old. And he tried one time, he got caught. And my dad got in big trouble. I love stealing. It was such a rush to do gezel. But I've taken control of it, and this is how it works. All of us have things that have got us by the neck. Food, money, lust, greed, power, whatever. There's all kinds of them. And you've got to take control of it. You want to eat? I mean, look, I stopped eating breakfast, mostly so I could lose weight, but also because I want to try to take control. And for me, this was really, really tough. So I stopped eating breakfast. Then by about 10 o'clock, my stomach is just rumbling, and I'm in class with kids. Look at me like, God, washer. And I'm like, what's your problem? Get back to work. And I just go about my business, and my stomach is rumbling, and I'm so hungry. And I force myself not to eat. Force myself. It's not about a diet. It's not about losing weight. It's about taking control of what's controlling me. This is Judaism. It's Judaism, and God will help you do it. Because all of that stuff comes up from the gut. The greed, the lust, the murder, the anger. We'll talk about that in a second. All of it, those midot that are bad, they all come up from here. And God will not take them away. So if you're given an assignment, and I'm going to say it like that on purpose, if you go to your rabbi and your rabbi says, well, try this. You should do this. And you don't do it, you're never going to move farther. Never. Why? Because God has us do each next thing. Each next thing. Gives us something to do, you work on it until you win, then you go to the next step. You work on it till you win, then you go to the next step. Passover, Hagamatzah, Bikurim, Shavuot. What's next? What's next? Wake up, come on. No, the fasts. The fast, 17th of Tevet. Then Bein HaMetzarim. Then 9th of Av. Then Elul. Then Rosh Hashanah. Then Yom Kippur, or the 10 days of awe. Then Yom Kippur. Then Sukkot. Then the week of Sukkot, then Shemini Atzeret. And it goes on and on and on. We're given these little areas to stop in our journey and work on one thing. One thing. But we're not doing it. And instead, you think, some of you, once in a while, you think that this stuff is to learn. It is not to learn, it's to change, to reinvent ourselves. You get to learn along the way, especially teachers and apostles. This is a problem. This is not for learning, it's for changing. So if you take all that learning and you stick it in there and it helps you do the last assignment, you got it. That's Judaism. But if you're just learning and you're not changing, you're not doing Judaism. What you're doing is what the church does. And I hate to say it that way, but basically that's what it comes down to. You're doing what Buddhists do. You're doing what Hare Krishnas do. You're doing what Muslims do, which is to go, holy. And it's not. Holiness is about learning how to curb your appetites. Learning how to curb your lust, your greed, your anger. Now, this was another huge one for me. Anger. It's called kas in Hebrew. This is in the shopping list of stuff. Kas. Kas, anger, puts a man out of the kingdom. Ooh. That's what the rabbis say. Puts a person out of the kingdom. And I had anger. All you had to do was drop a pin, and anger would flare up in me. It was horrible. I was angry all the time, day and night. I dream angry. I drive angry. And I dream angry. I was angry all the time. And at first, when God first started talking to me about anger, 15 years ago, I started justifying it with its righteous indignation. It's righteous indignation. Right? Now, you can do that with politics too. I'm so angry at that politician. It's a righteous indignation. I'm so mad at the left. I'm so mad at the right. It's a righteous indignation. No, it's not. It's just anger. It's just kas. That's all it is. So, I started working on it, and I've gotten somewhat of a handle on it. The way you get a handle on it is another one of the things of Judaism, which is tzedakah. You give. You give and you give and you give and you give and you give. Tzedakah means righteousness. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because you're emptying yourself for the sake of whoever else. And it doesn't matter who. And it could be somebody you hate, that you're angry at. Which leads to another one of the Jewish things, which you all know, Teshuva. Teshuva is something we do every day, by the way. It's not reserved for the 10 days of awe. It is something we do in Judaism every single day. Every day during the morning prayers, right? We talk about that Teshuva, that repentance. To give me a pure heart, give me a clean heart. The two I really, really love. Well, it's actually 5. I love doing this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozer Yisrael Bigvura. Got it right. Ozer Yisrael Bigvura. And then Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozer Yisrael Betifara. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who girds Israel with strength. And I picture God, just hugging, just, girding me with strength. And then, blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who crowns Israel with what? With glory. With glory, yeah. Glory. Well, then you come up against somebody you hate. Thank you, Lord, for crowning me with glory. Ah, you jerk. You cut me off in the middle of traffic. Son of... Oh. Blessed are you, Lord, who crowns Israel with glory. So those two together I like because it's like I start picturing myself like that instead of angry. And then the next 3. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, lo she'asani goy. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who has not made me a Gentile. And so I add, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yehud. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who's made me a Jew. Because I do Judaism. That's good. Who's called me out from among them to be a Jew. Awesome. Beautiful. And then, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, lo she'asani eved. Blessed are you, Lord, who has not made me a slave. And I add, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani avdecha, who has made me your servant. Jerk, cut me off in traffic. Okay? They're incompatible. When you start viewing yourself through these prayers, your midot it's like putting them under a microscope, and you start seeing them expanded and bigger. And it's like, oh, I got to deal with that. It makes you look at yourself, right? And then, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, lo she'asani isha. Blessed are you, Lord, our everlasting King, who has not made me a woman. And I add, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani natan lishi, who has made me to be the giver to my woman. And that has changed my whole life. My whole life. Everything that I see with my family, everything. It's all right side up, or getting right side up now. I see it completely different. The only way to really look at your midot, you're not going to see it in the New Testament. You're not. Because he's talking to people who do Judaism 24/7. The only way you're going to see it is in the Torah. So what I would encourage you to do is go look up there's a whole shopping list of Hebrew words that you've never heard before with their translation. Go into like Eish HaTorah and type in holiness. And it'll bring up this whole shopping list of how we're supposed to live. It has stuff in there like, I can't remember the Hebrew for it, don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. This is a huge category about not giving false testimony and not telling somebody the wrong thing ever, 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 which leads us to the next one, emet. This is a whole category. What does emet mean? Truth. Yeah, truth. Truth. It says in our Torah portion, you shall not lie to a brother. Right? Yes? Okay, we lie 450 times a day. And we do it not because we forgot, or not because we, I forgot, I don't know, I just got the facts wrong. That's not a lie. A lie is coming from the gut because I want something, I want glory, I want to be exalted, I want to be patted on the butt, I wanted somebody to talk nice about me, I want somebody to like me, I want somebody to give me money, I want whatever I want. And so, I lie. And we all do this all day long. All day long. And if you think you don't, you're deceived. Or else why would it be in the Torah? You shall not lie to a brother or a sister. Yeah? Go to John chapter 4. Sorry, 1 John chapter 4. Let's see, where's 1 John? I haven't looked in the Bible in so long, I forgot where it is. Before 2 John. Thank you, Ruby. That was a good one. That's a good one. 1 John 4. Verse 7. These are hard words. But remember, this was written by a rabbi to Jews who do Judaism 24/7. Wait, before I go on. Rabbi Alon Anava gets up at 4:30 every morning to walk down the cold stone steps barefoot in Sfat to go to the mikvah. 4:30 in the morning he gets up. He goes to do the mikvah. He does all the prayers. He does Teshuva every single day. And then he walks back up to his place and he starts doing the prayers. And then he does Shachrit prayers with the group. And then he does Mincha prayers with the group. And then he does Ma'ariv prayers, the evening prayers, with the group. And then he does, I can't remember what it's called, Shema, the prayer, the Shema prayer. There's 2 words of it. Anybody know? The Shema prayer in the evening before he goes to bed. And he says, oh, I lie all day long. I lie all day long. So I made a promise to myself I'm going to stop lying. So what position? And this is a Jew. Puts us to shame. Puts the body of Messiah to shame. Works so hard to make himself relevant to God. And there are tens of thousands of Jews who do this all over the world. Maybe hundreds, I don't know. Trying to make themselves, working to make themselves relevant to God. 1 John chapter 4, verse 7. Beloved, let's love each other. Now, this is a Jewish principle in that shopping list. Anybody know what it's called? Anybody know? No? Ahavat Yisrael. What does that mean? Ahavat Yisrael. Right, loving of Israel, love of Israel. What that means is you love every brother and sister like they are you. This is the Reformed Jews' favorite passage this week, Kedoshim. Why? Because it says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And they love that verse because they believe in social justice, and they love welcoming homosexuals and lesbians, and they love letting homosexuals get married under the bima, and lesbians get married under the bima together, and they love, working to end the poverty of the downcast. And yeah, that's all okay. They think it's love. Some of it might be. But they use that verse, and they call it Ahavat Yisrael. Problem is, they're not doing it with Israel. They're doing it with the Gentiles. And they end up doing it like the Gentiles, to allow two men to get married or two women to get married. That's what the Gentiles do. That's not Ahavat Yisrael. Ahavat Yisrael is to get Jews to do Judaism. We love every Jew, whether they've treated us like garbage or not. We love every Jew, every believer, every person of Israel. That's Ahavat Yisrael. And so he talks about Ahavat Yisrael. Beloved, let's love one another, because love is from God. Ahavat Yisrael is from God. Everybody who loves, everybody who does Ahavat Yisrael is born of God and knows God. The one who doesn't love doesn't know God. Why? God is love. And God said, Kedoshim tihiyu. Be holy like I'm holy. Be holy. Why? Because I'm holy. Love. Why? Because God is love. Be like God. How? Ahavat Yisrael. Love every Jew. The one who doesn't love doesn't know God. God's love. By this the love of God was manifest, was shown in us, that God has sent his only begotten Son into the world so that we might live through him. In this is love. Not that we love God, but that he loved us and sent his Son. Okay, that's God's part. Then he talks about our part. Beloved, if God so loved us, we ought to love each other. So God did the example. Why do we do it? Because Kedoshim tihiyu. What does that mean? What does that mean? Be holy. Why? Because Ani Adonai Kedosh. I am the Lord, am holy. All right. I can't understand what you're saying. Say it louder.
What verse is he quoting there from the Torah?
Where? Which part?
In 1 John 4:7.
Oh, in verse 7?
Yeah.
The one I quoted, I can't remember how to say it in Hebrew. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Re'echa. I can't remember how to say it. You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. The verse that all Reformed Jews love so much. That's in the Torah. That's in our Torah portion this week. So, I'm saying all this to tell you this. You have to go find out how Jews live. You've got to do your research to find out those categories of things that you've never done before. And I'm telling you, every one of them is distilled down to us working on our midot, our character, our characteristics. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been a believer. It doesn't matter anything except if you want to do it or not. That's the only thing that matters. We already know Judaism is a picture of all things heavenly. But what about our life? Our life is to be lived in a holy way, which means, we always say do Judaism, but what does that mean? The details of that means we work on ourselves. You got to work on yourself. It's not about information. It's not about how much you know. It's not about, how many verses you can quote, or the Hebrew, or the Gematria, or anything. It's only about one thing. How are you reinventing yourself to be a Jew? Even if you're not a Jew, how are you reinventing yourself to be a Jew? Does that make sense? That's why I don't give laws. This is why I don't say to you, well, you should do this, you should do that. I'll give you an assignment, like you should pray, you should talk to God about this aspect of your life or your heart. And I'm specific about it. But I'm not specific about giving you laws. I'm going to give you a law right now. Aren't you happy? No? Really? You guys are always asking me for a law. I'll give you a law. Here's a law. Here's a place to start. That's right. So I'm just saying facetiously I'm giving you a law, but I want you to understand something. If you're a Gentile and you wear tzitzit, or if you're a Jew and you wear tzitzit, you must wear a kippah. You've got to. Because one of the I can't remember the word. One of the categories of Jewish life, I cannot remember the word, but it's translated as like people who dress modesty, and I can't remember the word in Hebrew, modesty. How to dress. I don't want to give laws on how to dress, but in Judaism, there's only two things that are the dress code, our Jew uniform. Our Jew uniform is the tzitzit on the four corners and also the kippah. And by the way, I only learned this last night. Do you know what yarmulke means? We always say, oh, okay, yarmulke is Yiddish and kippah is Hebrew. They're the same thing. They are not the same thing. Do you know what it means? They don't mean the same thing at all. I'll say it in Hebrew instead of Aramaic. Ya'ar, Ya'ir, Ya'er. Do you know what that means? Ya'ar? Anybody know? No. It means fear. Ya'er, Melech. Ya'er Melech. What does Melech mean? King. That's what yarmulke means. Ya'er Melech. Ya'er Melka. It's Aramaic, not Hebrew. It means fear of the king. And so you cover your head. Now, kippah means the palm of the hand. No, it does not mean covering. It's a different word from kofer, which is like Yom Kippur, covering. It means the palm of the hand, literally. Like God's hand is on your head when you're walking around. Keeps you out of trouble. So it's not, I'll just keep it like that. It's our Jew clothes. If you wear tzitzit, you are saying that you, in the eyes of the Jewish community, and then the eyes of everybody else who knows anything, you're saying, I observe the mitzvot. I do Judaism. To many people, you're saying, I'm Orthodox, if you wear tzitzit. That's what you're saying. That's how people see it. That's how Jewish people see it. So, you walk around with tzitzit, and a Jew comes up to you and says something in Hebrew, and you go, I don't know what you're saying. Really? You're wearing tzitzit? You're wearing tzutzis? That's how they say it. You're wearing some tzutzis? When I was young, I used to wear tzitzit, and I'd connect them to my belt loops, and I'd wear them all the time because it was fun, and I liked it, and I loved it. It made me happy because I felt like I'm a Jew, I'm wearing Jew clothes. Look at me, I'm a Jew. I remember one time I was in Dallas with a bunch of us from the congregation, and this Jewish guy, I was walking through the mall, and this Jewish guy comes up and says, I know that you're wearing tzutzis. I said, yes, I'm wearing tzutzis. And we started talking. It was really cool. But I stopped wearing them for a long time. You know why? Anger, lust, greed. And I know I'm walking around with this. And I feel guilty. And I feel like a hypocrite. Exactly right. I feel like a hypocrite. I know. I don't feel like. I know I'm a hypocrite. I know I am because I'm not working on this stuff. So back during Mishpatim this year, I finally got my tzitzit, my tzutzos that are kosher with the blue in them, with the patil techelet, the thread of blue, and I started wearing them. And I started wearing my kippah again every day. I stopped wearing my kippah for years because same reason. I know I'm a hypocrite. So now I'm wearing it again. And nobody asks me anything at school, which is weird. Well, yeah, it's a new generation. When I used to do it when I was younger, everybody would ask. Now nobody asks. Nobody asks. So I wear it for me. And I wear it, and even if I'm a hypocrite that day, I know I'm working on it. I know I'm trying. I know I'm putting some effort in. And I'm making myself, I know I'm making myself relevant to God. I'm making him go, yeah, it's pretty cool, Michael. That's good. I like that. I like that. Let's talk. So that's about all I can say about this. The rest is going to have to be up to you. Yes, the purpose of tzitzit is very definitely to remind you, because it says that in Numbers 15:38 through 41. You shall look at it, and it shall be a reminder of the Torah. So yeah, it's to remind you, sure. And Deuteronomy 14:14 or 12:12 says the same thing. Kippah is the same thing. It reminds us that we are clothed in salvation, and his palm is on our head. His palm is on, literally, his palm is on our head, walking around with us. And I used to say this when I was young. I haven't said it in a long time. Try going into a whorehouse with tzitzit. That's what it comes down to. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. So if you're going to outwardly be a Jew, do what the Jews do. To examine your heart, the way God examines your heart. And just pick one thing, one midah, and work on it until you get it. And then go on to another one until you get it. Yes?
Is the Hebrew word sinuit for modesty?
Sinuit? That sounds familiar, but I don't know. Is the word for modesty sinuit? I don't know. Tziniut. Tziniut. Yes, that's modesty. Tziniut. Thank you.
And then the palm being on your head.
The palm of God being on your head.
We are engraved in the palm of his hand.
Yes, that's right. It's in Isaiah. It says we are engraved on the palm of his hand. That's correct. He's engraved Israel on the palm of his hand. That's right. So I would strongly encourage you to do your own research. You want to know what to do? Go find out what to do. But then you better do it. Okay? And by the way, in that verse that we looked at, it says, speak to all the, did you catch the word in Hebrew where it says congregation? Did you catch the word? Say it. No, not kahal. No. Edut. Edut. The word for congregation many times is edut, which means witnesses. Witnesses. The word for witness is ed, with an ein, ed. And the word for congregation is a bunch of those, witnesses. We're watching each other. I think God is kicking us up a notch. Bam! Kicking us up a notch. That we're not going to allow you to get, when I say you, I mean all of us, to get away with what we got away with before. We need to hold each other accountable. We are an edut. We are witnesses. You don't live your own life. If you're in a congregation, you live your life in front of the other witnesses, and you work it out together, and you help each other. But that takes rebuke. We got to learn how to rebuke each other properly. It's a trick. Hard to do. Yes, ma'am.
What happens when you know and you see the rabbi doing something and you try to rebuke and you are ashamed for it? Rather than being,
Has that happened here?
oh, it's happened to me, not here.
Not here. Thank you. That scared me. The question, that really scared me. My stomach started like getting butterflies. No. Next question. The question was, what happens when you try to rebuke the rabbi and you're shamed for it? That is not an edut. That's just bad. You guys, if I ever do that, go to Eileen immediately. I mean it. I don't allow that. Eileen doesn't allow that. If you guys try to rebuke me about something, I'm going to hear you. I guarantee I'm going to hear you. I just remembered something else I have to say. Please forgive me. I have to say it. Go ahead.
The thing is,
I'll
with
remember.
your question, in Judaism, you're in a circle. We're not doing it here, but a typical synagogue is set up in a circle where everybody's looking at each other.
Let me get this on tape, please. So Eileen is saying that we're an edut, which is witnesses, and Jews sat in a facing each other, panim el panim, face to face. Honey, you got to sit down. I got to get it on tape. You got it, please, honey. We don't do that anymore. We don't sit in a circle. We don't sit facing each other. We got to do it as best we can without the logistical ability to sit facing each other. But we have to do it. We have. I'm getting there, honey. But we got to do it mentally. We have to sit facing each other, think, talk, live facing each other, including me. I'm in that circle too. So, God forbid I would ever get like that, where you try to rebuke me for something and I don't listen. I'll make a promise to you, as best I can, I will never do that. I'll never do that. I listen to people when they rebuke me. I didn't used to. And that leads me to the very last midah that I forgot about, God forbid, anava. Anybody know what anava means? No, that's tom. Right? Humility. This is a huge one. The number one midah that is awful, horrible in Judaism is the opposite of humility. It's ge'ava, pride. Ge'ava. It's the number one worst thing you can have. And it feeds all the other bad guys in there. The number one best thing in Judaism that Jewish people consider in Judaism, the number one best thing is anava, humility. In my book, Living from the Inside Out, one of the last chapters, it's titled, Humility Escapes Me. That's what it's titled, because humility escaped me. I couldn't get there. I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried wrongly, so I couldn't get there. Because while I was trying to work on my pride, I was feeding my pride. And you can't do both. And since God broke me 7 years ago, just shattered me, started shattering me in 2005 when we lost the congregation, but really broke me 7 years ago. Really started shattering me 7 years ago. Since then, I'm not feeding my pride anymore, and so I can work on my pride. You hear what I'm saying? You can't do both. You can do one or you can do the other, but you can't do both. So, I would really encourage you to just pick one. Just pick one. And see what you can do with it. Listen, I know this is totally different from the church. Because in the church they go, God is going to do this and God's going to do that for you and God's going to help you with this and they don't go, you need to do this. They never say that. Why? Because they don't have Judaism. And look at the smile on my face when I say it. You need to do this or do that. It's not a law. It's an ability through the cycle of the year to be able to handle one or two things. And that's it. And then get that one thing and beat it. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Awesome. That's Kedoshim in Judaism. Let's pray. Abba, thank you so much for the ability, giving us the ability, the cycle of the year, and giving us your Ruach HaKodesh to help us to pinpoint whatever the thing is that we want or we need to work on, or you want us or need us to work on. I thank you, Lord, that you are waiting and willing to look at us with joy in your face and to turn your eyes and your face toward us and give us chen, give us grace. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. The Lord bless you and keep you. Ye'er Adonai panav alecha v'chuneka. The Lord lift up his face to you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord lift up his head toward you and give you shalom. Amen. Let's do Kiddush.